After completing my hardest challenge yet, I then decided to look backwards for my next run. If I can complete Warcraft 3 with only basic units, why not Warcraft 2? Let's go! Here are the rules. Rule 1. I can only train and command grunts unless the level is otherwise impossible. Rule 2. I may build peons, oil tankers, goblin zeppelins, transports, and towers. Rule 3. I can only train destroyers once every enemy grounded building is destroyed. Warcraft 2 has some advantages and some disadvantages compared to Warcraft 3. First, the things that make it easier. There are no damage types in Warcraft 2, which means grunts deal full damage to enemy buildings. Secondly, grunts are actually pretty good. While they're outclassed by ogres in every way, their stats are still good enough that they're a viable unit to mass. Third, there's no upkeep in Warcraft 2 and a ridiculously high supply cap, which means as long as there's gold available, I can mass up as long as I want before attacking. Despite these advantages, I'm still nervous for two reasons. The first is pathfinding. Warcraft 2 pathfinding is, quite frankly, atrocious. Enemy towers are nightmares to face, not because of their stats, but because they don't aggro my units. This means that if my grunts get stuck or are attacking another building, they will stand in place while towers shoot them. 2 upgraded grunts are capable of soloing a cannon tower, but a cannon tower is also capable of soloing multiple control groups of grunts if I don't micro very carefully. I'm bad at micro, and because the pathfinding is so bad, micro in Warcraft 2 is absolutely ridiculous. The second reason I'm nervous is because this game has a lot of naval combat. I'm not going to allow myself to train destroyers until every land-based structure has been destroyed. This means I'm going to need to sneak transports through enemy ships to attack on levels with water. The first couple levels are easy. I beat the tutorial, then execute a bunch of trolls who think they're good enough to join the Horde. The next level, South Shore, requires me to build 4 oil platforms, and while I can build 3 without training a destroyer, I need to destroy an enemy oil platform before I can take the 4th for myself. Without any other options, I train a destroyer, destroy a human oil platform, then complete the mission. A bit sad, but nothing I can do here. Assault on Hillsbrad is the first real mission of the campaign, and it will serve as a guide for how I'm going to do naval missions for this challenge. I construct towers to protect my shipyards, build a bunch of transports and grunts, then unload them all and destroy the human settlement. After that, I build towers to get rid of all the other destroyers in range of a coastline, and then train a destroyer to destroy any oil platforms. Technically, it is possible to beat most of these levels without destroyers, but it would involve waiting for the enemy to mine out of all of their oil platforms. I'm bored, but I'm not that bored, so I use my destroyer to blow up the last enemy oil platform, then move on. The next level, Tol Barad, is more of the same, and then we get a non-base mission. I need to make an example of an ogre chieftain who wants to join the Horde, and need to kill this chieftain within a circle of power on the other side of the map. So, I move from there, he dies, and the mission is completed. No ogres will join this Horde. Stormguard starts with no starting base and a small army. Normally, to free this small army, I'm supposed to send destroyers to rescue some transports, then use my army to secure a base in the middle of the map. This base is lightly defended, but has enough that it's almost impossible to take out with just 3 grunts and 3 peasants. At first, I thought this level was impossible. Use my starting army to take a base, then beat it from there with just grunts. After thinking about it more, I decided to revisit this. By moving my starting grunts and peons carefully, I can actually break them out of their prison and escape on a full transport. The gold mine I'm supposed to take is guarded by a cannon tower and 2 footmen, which is too much for my small army to handle. However, there are 2 bases I can take. The first is a smaller island with an enemy guard tower on it, and the second is an undefended gold mine just to the west of the enemy base. Let's have some fun. By destroying a wall near the mine, I construct a great hall and start mining. I build a couple farms, but I don't have long before 2 enemy destroyers show up at my base. While I want to build a lumber mill and a tower to defend against it immediately, I don't have the space to build a lumber mill until a bunch of nearby trees are chopped down. Thankfully, Red helps me out, clearing the forest as I repair my pig farms. This repair buys me enough time to construct a guard tower, which sinks the destroyer and saves my base. I need to be very careful about where I step and where I defend attacks, because if I move too far into Red's base, they will notice me and destroy me. Unfortunately, a ballista in Red's base forces me to engage in there, so I send my grunts to kill it, aggroing a small army from Red. They destroy one of my towers and kill off my grunts, but I live and have just enough gold left to expand. I load up my transport, then free the other base that I could have taken at the start of the level. With my second gold mine secured, I get a little more aggressive, building more towers just outside of Red's base. At this point, Red's AI completely breaks, as they send units to respond to the attacking towers, but don't let their units pass the felled tree line. Essentially, this means my towers just shoot their army for a bit for free, and once their army is sufficiently weakened, I go in and destroy their main base. After this, the level is cleanup. I build towers to destroy their ships, transport my grunts to kill the prison guards at the start of the level, and train one destroyer to get rid of their oil platform. Stormguard secured. I haven't even taken what was supposed to be my main base. The Runestone at Daro is the first major challenge of the run. There's a human castle on a small island you have to destroy, which is surrounded by paladins, ships, catapults, and cannon towers on a narrow landing. Trying to land grunts in there without taking out the ships and towers first is complete suicide. I send in 9 transports of fully upgraded grunts in an attempt to overwhelm Blue's defenses, and I don't even take out a single tower. It's time for a new plan. Instead of going for the objective, I reload and attack Blue's main base instead, this time with a smaller army that's easier to micro. Once I get my army away from the coastlines, they take out Blue's defenses with ease. Without their farms, Blue can't train reinforcements, which makes attacking the objective much easier. After building up, I decide to go again, this time destroying 2 enemy cannon towers before my huge army gets slaughtered. Without these cannon towers, the fortification is much weaker, and my third army is able to break through. I beat this level because I had such an overwhelming amount of gold, but I'm going to need to play it a little bit smarter in the future. The next level, the Raising of Tyr's Hand, is similar to the previous level, only significantly tougher. Again, I need to clear out a central island, then build a fortress and a shipyard on it. The enemy now has battleships, a naval unit that does an obscene amount of damage at 6 range, only 1 less than that of a cannon tower. Defending against their naval attacks is all about positioning. If I can lure battleships within the range of my cannon towers while they're trying to attack something else, the battleships will just accept their fate and sink. However, setting up the right position is tricky when I have to protect my transports and shipyards, and any mistakes will cost me several grunts or peons. The hard part in this level is breaching the main island, which is reinforced by walls, cannon towers, ballistas, and paladins. Learning my lesson, I load up my transports to attack the main base first, but this main base is also incredibly heavily fortified, and I don't have infinite gold. I move in cautiously, using my grunts to secure a bit of territory on the other side of the ocean, then construct 4 barracks in enemy territory. I move in with my army, trying to destroy 1 cannon tower at a time, but progress is bloody. I get close to the enemy gold mine, but my forces get overwhelmed by enemy paladins, ships, and towers, so I gotta reset. These levels really show the importance of careful micro in this challenge. I'm not going to be able to win if I mass up a bunch of grunts and have them attack the enemy. The pathfinding in this game is just so bad that my grunts will suicide en masse if I am not able to control their movements perfectly. So I start to change my strategy. I go in with smaller groups of units, targeting individual units and towers in each raid. I also try my best to stay away from the coastlines and fight units away from towers as much as possible. After a lot of pain, I'm finally able to fight my way up to the enemy gold mine, stopping their production and stealing their gold. I consider trying to kill off the rest of the mainland, but I realize there's no point. I need to take the island to beat the mission, and my gold supply is limited. So I send 18 grunts to attack the island and kill off 2 cannon towers. My next 12 grunts kills 2 ballista and 3 paladins. At this point, I realize I don't have enough money to actually secure the island, so I reset again. The next time, I forego the barracks on the other side of the map, trying to move in earlier and more carefully, securing my new gold mine with 12,000 extra gold this time, and a lot more grunts left over. I try sending in 1 transport at a time with the goal of sniping a single tower, but that turns out to be a bad idea. I then send in 24 grunts, killing 2 cannon towers before they all die. Another 18 grunts kill 3 ballista. My next 18 grunts kill 2 paladins. Then I have to send in 17 more grunts, breaking through and killing 5 paladins, but by this point I don't have enough money to continue the siege. With my remaining grunts and peons, I managed to kill off the final ballista on the island and build a shipyard on it, but I don't have enough space or money to build a fortress there. I try again, micro a bit better, and kill off enough cannon towers to just barely be able to fit a great hall on the island. I build it, upgrade it into a stronghold, build a shipyard, and I'm 900 gold short of a fortress. Are you kidding me? Ugh. Well, at least I know this is doable. This time, I send in 2 transports at once, but drop them off at different cannon towers. 12 grunts take out the 2 cannon towers, then one of their battleships follows my transport to my base, so I eventually manage to take it out with some towers. With 2 cannon towers cleared, their ballistas standing out in front of their base, and their battleships taken out, I suddenly have an opportunity. 18 grunts kills 4 paladins and 3 ballista, and the island is vulnerable. My next attack only kills 2 paladins, but my one after that destroys the rest of the units on their island. Grunts are actually great against lone cannon towers, and my remaining 2 grunts kill their final 2 cannon towers by themselves. Unfortunately, this comes at the cost of my transports, so I run out of money again. Ugh. I reset, taking out 2 cannon towers with my first wave. For my second wave, I intentionally target the paladins, killing 6 paladins with 24 grunts. For our next wave, I send in 18 more grunts, killing the rest of the defenders on the island while also remembering to retreat my transports to safety. At long last, I have enough money to construct a fortress and a shipyard on the island, and the Horde has proven their naval dominance. Via grunts. The destruction of Stratholme starts me off with a small army and no base, which isn't a promising sign. I begin the level by killing off all my non-grunt units, then using my 2 grunts and 3 peons to secure my first gold mine. I need to be very careful at this stage, because there are 3 footmen directly above my base that will kill me if I move up too far. The bad news is that I'm stuck, but the good news is that without an army, I'm able to train peons much earlier than I would be able to otherwise in this level, so I can build up my economy very quickly. After I build a barracks and use my peons to support, I'm eventually able to kill off those 3 footmen and get myself some much needed space on this map. My next problem is lumber. There are very few trees in my starting location, and the enemy will notice me if I move further up the map. Exploring gives me access to some trees close to the enemy base, and I build a lumber mill there, but the outpost doesn't last long. Ballista draw my grunts into enemy defenders, enemy paladins sneak past my units to kill my harvesting peons, and I'm forced to retreat back to my main base. I only have 1 barracks and don't have enough lumber to build another, so I can't build units quickly enough to save this outpost. However, grunts only cost gold, and my starting mine still has a bit left, so I'm able to slowly build up another army and try again. This time I build on the far side of the enemy base, hoping I can mess with the AI's pathfinding enough to stay safe. I'm much more successful this time, harvesting enough lumber to continue my upgrades and build more barracks up north. Eventually, I start chopping close enough to their base that their ballista starts killing my peons, but by this point I have a big enough army to take the second gold mine. Now that I've stabilized, this level becomes easier. My first wave takes out their towers, and my second wave destroys their main base. After that, I destroy their ships with towers, then I finish off their oil platforms with destroyers. Next up is the dead rise while Quel'Thalas falls. Unfortunately, the enemy is attacking as the level begins, and I only start with 3 ogres and 3 goblin sappers to defend. I need to use the starting units to fend off this attack, but kill them as soon as the threat is removed. After this, the level is very easy. The map has a ton of resources on it, and there's no naval combat, so I just mass up grunts and win. The Tomb of Sargeras is more interesting. There's chaos brewing in the Horde as we discover one of our commanders is not a grunt. Even worse, he's trying to attack humans with things that aren't grunts. He needs to be taken out. I start with a small army and no base, and have to destroy 2 enemy orc bases on this island map. Each gold mine is defended, and I don't start with any grunts, so I'm going to need to use my starting army to take a gold mine. After thinking about which one to start with, I take my opponent's main. I've never tried this before, and I'm kind of shocked at how well it works. With my starting army, I'm able to annihilate both enemy Great Halls and essentially beat the level before taking a base. After easily beating the level this way, I decide that I'm cheating, and that I should use my starting army as little as possible. So, I try again. This time, I only use my starting army to take out 2 grunts and an ogre on what the devs intended to be my starting base. Then, I build up infrastructure alongside a few towers to destroy enemy ships. The opponents in this level only attacks you with ships, which means your base is safe as long as it's not in range of any coastlines. My shipyard is also expertly hidden at the back of my base, and AI navigators don't really understand that ships can't walk on land, so the enemy ships either get stuck or get taken out by towers. My oil platform does eventually get destroyed, but not before it's given me enough oil to build 2 transports. Hoping for the best, I load up my 2 transports with grunts to try and free up a second gold mine, and it works. I lose 1 transport in the process, but I manage to take my second one and quickly grab 6 peons to start up my expansion. My second transport dies pretty soon after, but it's done its job. Expansion acquired. Gul'dan orders a massive blockade of my new island, but as long as I keep my units away from the shore, the ships are mostly harmless. I decided to leave them be, since if I destroy any ships, the enemy will just remake them and then send them to more inconvenient locations. With the enemy having amassed all their ships on my expansion island, suddenly an oil patch close to my main base is free to use, and I soon have enough oil to build all the transports I'll ever need. After a long period of build-up, I send a bunch of grunts and peons to the mainland to begin my invasion. The enemy main bases don't have much in the way of land defenses, but Death Knights and enemy juggernauts slow down my march considerably. I send in grunts to kill off a section's main ground defenses and towers, then build cannon towers of my own to take out their ships and buildings. Progress is slow but steady until I reach the top of the map, where flying demons come out and start wrecking my grunts. I run out of money, and the enemy still has a bit of their base left. The solution here is pretty simple. Just make sure I cover my northern cannon towers with guard towers and be more efficient with my grunts. Demons aren't very strong units after all. I just need to be able to actually hit them. In practice, this was trickier than I expected. I needed to build a bunch of guard towers to actually get the demons to aggro on them, and I needed to kill the demons in order to destroy the towers and ships on the mainland. Eventually, I decided I need more gold, so I reset back to before I landed on the mainland. Instead of charging randomly with my grunts, I attack much more strategically, only destroying towers and buildings that can't be attacked by enemy ships. Instead of attacking purple by land, I use transports to unload directly in front of their cannon towers, minimizing the splash damage they can do to me. This works shockingly well, destroying purple's defenses where I barely lose any grunts. My second attack is less efficient than my first, but now I've cleared out almost all of their mainland towers with a lot of money in the bank. With one more coordinated attack, I'm able to completely clear out the mainland of defenders. After this, it's just cleanup. My guard towers kill demons, my grunts destroy some cannon towers on isolated islands, and I build some cannon towers to finish off enemy ships. Soon, the only enemy left is a lone Temple of the Damned in the center of the main island, which my grunts and towers can't reach. At that point, I train up some goblin sappers, explode the rocks protecting it, and let my grunts finish off the building. A couple destroyers destroy their last oil platforms, and the horde is pure once more. My orcish horde has finally reached the eternal city of Dalaran, the tower capital of the world. This level introduces Griffin Riders to the mix, the only damage-dealing flying unit in the human roster, which honestly is less of a problem than you might think it would be. The Griffin Rider is just not a particularly good unit for its cost. It doesn't get access to upgrades, and it gets absolutely destroyed by guard towers. Defending against these units is pretty easy as long as I build towers to protect my base. The enemy doesn't send ground attacks at all to me, which I have a suspicion is not because of the intentional mission design, but instead because they couldn't figure out a way to get the AI to send units from Dalaran to your main base. There is water in the way after all, and the AI doesn't know how to navigate that. The map design is interesting, because there is both a naval path and a ground path to the enemy base. Since fighting for oil is almost impossible with so many griffins and ships around, I'm going to need to use the ground path, which, oh boy, this is going to be a nightmare. It's not hard to get my expansion and build up to an absurd army, but this is probably the largest enemy base in all of Warcraft 2. Cannon towers ring their way through the coastline, random walls are everywhere to mess up my pathing, and griffins can appear at any moment to rain down unopposed hellfire against my army. My first attempt, I throw a good 50 grunts at the problem and barely manage to get through some of the base's outer defenses while getting slaughtered. With another couple of armies, I managed to break through to take their gold mine, but by this point I've run out of money and about 3/5 of their base is still intact. I build a great hall at their mine, defend it with a guard tower, then get my last surviving peon killed by an enemy cannon tower as I try to mine more gold. It's a stalemate, and the orcs don't accept stalemates. My next attempt, I secure my opponent's gold mine. This really angers Purple, who responds by bombarding my guard towers with Blizzard. I'm spending all of my money just keeping my expansion alive, and once again I run out of money with a ton of enemy base remaining. This level takes me a long time, but every time I try it, I'm learning something more and getting better. First off, if I build a tower directly behind my Great Hall, I can sometimes manipulate mages to walk past the tower without caring about whether he's getting shot. Secondly, I learned that when I attack a heavily fortified base with grunts, I need to order groups of grunts to walk past the defenders and move straight to the enemy cannon towers. Cannon towers prioritize enemies that are closer to them, while dealing more damage to enemies further away from them, which means getting right in their face can minimize the damage that they can deal. My next attempt, I destroy Purple's northern base and western base, but still don't have enough to solve their eastern base. This base has 3 Griffin Riders that don't attack you, a destroyer, and several paladins defending it, which slaughters my remaining grunts super quickly. There's no secret formula here, the only strategy is just to be more efficient. After a ton of attempts, I finally break through and destroy all the towers on the map. Only 2 shipyards, a couple destroyers, and a Griffin Rider remain. I build a couple guard towers, destroy everything left, and... What? Are you kidding me? At the time, I thought I lost because 3 oil tankers remained. But you don't actually need to kill off all the oil tankers to end the level. What actually happened was that the enemy had a submarine left. Maybe 2 submarines, maybe 1, I'm not sure. But either way, I actually left this game too soon. There was an enemy submarine on a patrol path getting shot by my tower, and I completely missed it until I watched the footage. I think there might have been a second submarine on the right side regardless that I had no way to kill. But, yeah. All of that, and I'm a couple submarines short. After many more attempts, I figure out the play. Send in a squad of 4 grunts to take out the northern tower. Build some guard towers in the south to take out the enemy destroyers and a couple of griffins. Send in a small squad of grunts to snipe the last central guard tower at the entrance to their base. Use that space to build another guard tower to snipe purple's last griffin and a couple paladins. Then, use my remaining grunts to destroy the rest of the undefended towers. 1 surviving grunt and 4,780 gold remaining. My first instinct is to get a ship to hunt down their remaining ships, but an enemy submarine finds my oil field and destroys it. After that, I realize I can probably intercept the last remaining ships with towers. I train a goblin zeppelin to spot where the last sub is patrolling, then build a guard tower in its path to take it out. I'm still thinking I need to kill the oil tankers at this point, so I use my last money for a destroyer. I find the remaining submarine, destroy it, and finally escape this cursed level. Only 1 level remains, but honestly, it's nowhere near as bad as the previous one. I get 2 bases to start the level, which gives me a ton of resources. I build guard towers everywhere to defend against enemy griffins, mass up a ton of grunts, clear out my starting island, then land on the right side of white space. I have a ton of money at this point, and white space is an open field, which is significantly easier for grunts to fight in than the twisting maze of Dalaran. Eventually, I construct a landing zone with a bunch of guard towers and barracks on White's Island, train a ton of grunts, overwhelm white space, and take their gold mine. After that, it's just a matter of building cannon towers along the coastlines to hunt down their ships, then training a couple destroyers to get rid of their last oil platforms. The humans are gone, and the Horde is victorious. The endless army of grunts has crashed their way through the human defenders, destroying everything the Alliance holds dear. This was a weird campaign to play through because this campaign is not a hard one normally, which made the difficulty wildly fluctuate over the course of the run. When I came into the run, I was expecting naval combat to be the toughest part, but it turned out pathfinding was the true killer. The difficulty of the level was almost directly proportional to the openness of the terrain of the level. Open terrain was super easy, but narrow choke points were absurdly difficult to get past. Still, one question lingers. What if the humans didn't try to use their silly griffins and elves to stop the Horde? What if they had used more footmen? If they had, would they have been able to win this war? Let's find out together next time.